there. It's live.
Nope, we're live.
It's live now.
We're
There you go.
live, and we're live.
Hey.
The Lost Cryptids Conservatory, where we will shatter your reality to bring you closer to the truth.
Welcome to the Lost Cryptids Conservatory. Thank you, everybody that's here. I would like to welcome our guest, Adam Davies, and thank him for being on the show. How are you doing tonight, Adam?
Well, thanks very much for having me, Chad. Yeah, I'm very good. I'm very good. It's interesting to meet you sort of virtually before the conference. We had a little chat before, and that was fun. I enjoyed it, so thank you.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to my co-hosts and partners in our venture and let them ask you questions. But don't worry, I'll be in there and I'll have some for you. So okay. Whoever wants to take over, take over.
That's pretty funny. Crickets, right?
Crickets.
Crickets. I'll take over. First of all, thank you for being patient, everyone. We did have some internet issues tonight and connectivity issues, but we're glad to be on here with Adam. Adam, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into all of this?
Well, I have looked for unknown species all over the world for decades now. I know what you're thinking. He's only 25. I'm not. I'm a lot older than that. I've looked for, you name it, I've looked for it. So if it's the Congo looking for the fabled dinosaur, the Makili Mamembe, to cryptids in India, the Mandibarung, Sumatra, Mongolia, the death worm, China. I've made some documentaries. Yeah, I've been all over the world looking for these things, and I've got a wealth of experience. I think I'm probably the most traveled person in the world looking for them, and certainly to some of the most unexplored areas. I say unexplored loosely, but I have done all of those jungles, deserts, you name it. I've looked for it. How I got into it was very briefly. I had a sister that died of neuroblastoma, which was a form of cancer when she was very young, and that gave me an attitude that you never know when you're going to go. That you need to sort of remember that in a lot of ways. So I did that. I've always had an interest in tracking animals. I've always had an interest in mystery and unknown creatures. So I combined the two to pursue my passion, which was always answering questions about what could happen if these creatures did still exist. And that's what I was about.
Wonderful. What would you consider to be, I'm wondering here, your favorite cryptid and your favorite cryptid and your favorite travel story?
Well, I think it's a difficult question. I think my favorite cryptid would be some sort of hominid type creature, and there's a particular the intellectual interest for me has always been understanding their level of sentience, so understanding their level of intelligence. We know so much more than we did even 20 years ago about genetics and about our understanding of our own ancestors. When I was a kid, we used to think, you used to see that linear progression of evolution with, you used to see the map with the ape like that squatting down, and then us as the epitome of evolution. Now we know that, for example, we had many different ancestors and or genetic links, not just Neanderthals, but we coexisted, for example, with Flores man, Denisovans, the deer people, all of these things that, and we know from our genetic understanding that there are very probably other facets and types of humanity that we just don't know, which are within our genetic pattern even now. So all of these things lead me to consider that my favorite cryptid is without a doubt the sort of Bigfoot or bipedal primate creature, because I'm interested in how bright they are. Travel story, gosh, I've got a lot. Sure. I think if I had to pick one, because you're asking me about a singular moment, and I think the singular moment was when I went to the Congo. I was looking for the Mokele Mbembe, and I was looking for something called.
Well, will you explain to the audience what the Mokele Mbembe or Mbembe or what is that? Will you explain it?
This is it, Chad. This is it. You can tell how many beers you've had about whether you can say that. All right. So we're going to go for it right now. Right. We're going to go for it right now, Chad, and then I'll tell you the story. So here we go. Mokele Mbembe. Come on, Chad.
Mokele Mbembe.
Yeah, nearly there. I'll work on that. But in all seriousness, the Mokele Mbembe, there were stories about a living dinosaur still existing in the Congo Basin.
Right.
And they always fascinated me. I'd read Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness when I was younger, and I was always very interested in going to the Congo. And there's a whole story behind all of this. And if you're interested in this, we can cover it a little bit when I do come to the Michigan Conference. But it was very hard to get to Lake Tele. Colonel John Blashford Snell, who was one of the world's greatest explorers, said to me before I went, "You do realize, Adam, it's living hell to cross the Likula swamp." And he was right. It was terrible. But I managed to make.
Did you almost die?
Oh yeah, I got shot at. There were kids with AK-47, all sorts of things. It was just horrendous. But eventually, I made it. So I get to Lake Tele, and I'm with the tribal people, the Bantus, who took me there, and it was a big effort even for them. So I've got cuts all over my body, and we had an old pirogue we found from their tribe, because they hadn't, and I got in this pirogue. It's like a canoe, and I floated out. It's quite shallow, Lake Tele. I floated out on this canoe. I was just exhausted. I just thought, and I'm not going to say the word. I was like, I've made it. Yeah, made it onto this thing. And I lie down like that. I lay down like this, and as I'm lying down, a carpet of blue butterflies land on me.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was awesome, but it gets better, because up above me, there's a gorilla picking its nose from the top of a tree, just like watching. So that was probably my favorite singular moment, just because it was the end of just so much suffering, and there was so much beauty and weirdness and uniqueness in the experience. I thought, this it doesn't get better than this. Man, I've suffered, but this is good.
How are the mosquitoes? Was it like mosquito free?
It's not really mosquitoes. They have these things called sweat bees, and they're all over you. And somebody said to me, I think it was a zoologist, said to me, well, they don't sting me, or they don't sting you. Let me tell you, Chad, that they do sting you. They do. They do sting you. And literally, when you're in the jungle, you will have your own cloud. Like Pigpen out of Charlie Brown and Peanuts. You have your own cloud of sweat bees. And at one stage, my hand swelled up because I got thorns in it. Everything in the jungle in the Congo, it isn't like the old Tarzan movies. You don't swing from vine to vine in a loincloth. Everything has got thorns on it, and a combination of the thorns and the bees made my hands sort of swell up. It was like a balloon, and that was a bit serious because you get an infection in the jungle, I can lose my hand. so
for your life.
Yeah, or my life. Yeah, absolutely. So it was bees rather than mosquitoes that were the problem there. They have these little flies as well. I'm not going to give you the exact name, which I nicknamed.
Well, what is it? Top secret?
No, it's just that I had a nickname for it, and I can't say it on here because
you
it's
can
live.
say whatever you want on here.
Well, I used to call them bastard flies because they're near. But basically, they have like little needles. They have it. They'll prick you with a little needle, but they have an anticoagulant. So if you have a wound, they'll open up, which is really bad. And you used to feel them like that. I think the worst one though was the tsetse fly. A lot of people die from sleeping sickness caused by the tsetse fly there. So there's a lot of in the jungle. I mean, you ask a good question, and tangentially, the point I'd make to you is that in the jungle, the big things are around, sure, and some of them are very dangerous, like forest elephants. But the biggest, and tigers in Sumatra, of course, and but the biggest danger really are the little things. It's the insects and the bugs that can bite you and cause the infections that are the biggest problem. You're more likely to die of something that debilitates you, a sickness, than you are a predator. Yeah.
Wow. So, in your recommendation for all the dream seekers and the thrill seekers that just want to go out into the African or Amazon jungle, there's a lot to worry about.
well
it isn't the big cats.
I'm not going to recommend anyone to go out there right now because it's foolish for me to do that. It's very, very dangerous. I trained for years to do those sort of things. I've been on survival courses. Let me say to you, if you're interested in this sort of subject and you're an enthusiast, what you do is you take it stage by stage. So, for example, you live in Michigan. What would you do? You'd go out with you guys. You'd learn the local flora and fauna. You'd know woods. You'd know how to track. You'd know how to interact with the animals in your locality. Then you might go somewhere else where there is jungle, where you can learn about jungles and jungle habitats. But if you're going somewhere like the Congo, it's intensely dangerous for all the people there as well. So you'd have to learn you have to have some background in dealing with tribal peoples and how to get the best out of them. It's quite complex. I would never encourage anyone to get on a plane and go to the Congo if all they've done, and I mean this very respectfully, is travel about their locale. It's a progressive thing, really. Otherwise it becomes extremely dangerous. So the best thing anyone can do is become really good at knowing their own environment. I think that's the key to success.
Great answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I'm going to pass it on to my co-mates.
Hey, are you there, Josh? Not sure Josh can hear us. He's having, this is just really odd tonight.
Oh, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, buddy.
We can hear you, Josh. We can hear you.
Okay.
Any questions for Adam here?
Sorry, I've been trying to get this to work. It kept kicking me backstage. Sorry, Adam.
No, it's all right, man.
No, it's okay, Adam.
Yeah, what was one of your first experiences with a cryptid?
One of my first experiences was it was in Norway, and it was quite an interesting story, really. So I was looking for something called the Seljord serpent, which is their equivalent of the Loch Ness monster, and their stories about it go back hundreds of years. And I decided I'd do my best to try and find it. So I went with a team, a really nice team of guys. There were some British guys in my team, and we teamed up with some Swedes when we got there, and a couple of Norwegian people as well. And we went over there, and I was kind of interested in the story, but it was a precursor. I was building up to going to the Congo at the time. And what I did was I decided I wanted to try my very best to find it, because, you know, if I go somewhere, I try and go all out as much as I can, and I'll do my very, very best to find something. So I looked at the eyewitness reports, particularly the most recent eyewitness reports, and I assessed their credibility. I worked at, you know, the easiest way to describe it is I worked as a type of lawyer for the British government. So, and I used to cross-examine people in court. So I assessed their credibility. And what I did was I also looked at limnologist reports, which are fish experts. And I looked at the eyewitness sightings and the limnologist reports, the greatest concentration of fish in the area, imagining that would be the most likely thing that the thing would eat. Mm-hmm. And then I put teams on different points in the lake and had them do observational work. It's not particularly exciting. It's hours and hours and hours of staring at water, you know, waiting for something to happen. But that's important, because you need to learn how to differentiate between a wake caused by or a wave and maybe some anomalous creature in the water. And you have to get your eye in. It's not, you know, even if you've done it before, it takes a while to get into that. You don't, you know, that's why people often, you know, you're driving past a tourist, thinks they see the monster. Most of the time it's a wave or a tree trunk. They're just not used to it. They're not used to that approach, and it takes ages. So, but what we also deployed, and this, you know, the team from Sweden had an expert. There was a hydrophone which was deployed. Now, I like hydrophones rather than sonar, because with a hydrophone, what it will do is a sonar will show you something moving, an object moving through the water, as I'm sure you know. But that's about as good as it gets, or it was technologically at that stage. You can say, okay, that's an object moving through the water. We think that might be a big creature moving through the water, but that's as high as you can go. It's not really substantive proof. It's not earth-shaking, if you know what I mean. But a hydrophone, the thing I liked about the hydrophone is that you can hear the emissions that might be made, and from that you can get analysis. So two very important things happened. Again, that's a whole story, but I'm trying to distill down the information that you might find particularly pertinent when I answer your question. And two things that really were important. The first thing was that I and another team member saw the cell-yawed serpent. And why can I make that assertion? I'll tell you in a minute. Okay. So I saw it move across the water. It was long and black, about 20 feet. And it had, like, what was interesting was it had like barbs on its back. You know, you could see that there as the barbs on its back. And why can I make that assertion with confidence? Because the hydrophone emissions were analyzed by the Marine Research Institute in Bergen. And there, they had a panel of experts, and Dr. Oldvold Soldal, who was their leading expert, came back and said, I am astonished to say this is an unknown species. So you have that visual sighting at the same time as the leading experts in their field come to the conclusion that it's an unknown species. And Josh, if that had been the Loch Ness Monster, it would have been world news, but it's a less glamorous one. So it wasn't. But it was a remarkable thing for me, and it was one, you know, I actually saw this creature. And I feel confident saying that, you know, because I've got the science behind it to back up that assertion.
Yeah, I mean, even if it wasn't the Loch Ness Monster, that's still pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience and an amazing piece of science. And, you know, afterwards, I looked at I think there's a 17th century woodcut of the cell-yawed serpent. And what I found very interesting was the way the artist had depicted the barbs was just what I saw. Yeah. So I thought that was usually exciting. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this, Adam. Do you think because of global warming and the melting of the ice caps that there will be more species released from places underneath the ocean? I believe there's oceans under the oceans, and that they'll find their way out, and that we'll experience a lot more unknown species now that we've experienced this meltdown.
Well, there are certainly plenty of unknown species in the ocean. There's no doubt about that. And what, you know, is my understanding. I'm not an expert in, I mean, it's important I say what I am and what I'm not. And I wouldn't claim to be an expert in oceanic creatures of any nature. It's just from my own experience and my own study, I understand that creatures are moving away from the equator because of global warming. To answer your point particularly, you're seeing that. And there's certainly, you know, if you look at submersibles, they only have to go down under the Antarctic, literally, and new species are found. I'm sure there'll be plenty of aquatic species that have not been discovered, plenty, and some very large ones. You know, I mean, it's a misunderstanding to say that there aren't. Sometimes people have said, it amuses me, you know, my first degree was in history before I did law. And what amuses me, if you look at the history of science, the Victorians, many of the Victorians declared that science was over in their era, sort of 19th century, because yeah, it's like, well, all the discoveries have been made, all science is over, blah, that's it, you know. Anything else from now on, you just, like, ladies and gentlemen, you're just wasting your time. Well, no.
Exactly.
Mm.
That is exactly right. You know, that science was so arrogant that they thought that they knew everything. We hardly know anything at all, I think, is the point. What do you think about unknown land species yet, in particular primates and hominids?
Well, again, there are large land masses where people don't go. And I'll give you an example, of an area that people can relate to and see for themselves. So, you know, we talked about the Congo earlier. I flew over an area the size of Switzerland where there's no people, maybe a few Bantu, maybe a few pygmies on the edge of it. Pygmies are wonderful people, by the way, musical and interesting, and they're maltreated, and I'm very in favor of their rights. You know, they were lovely people. And, you know, people have even asked me, do they exist? Well, yes, they're real people. But I flew over that whole area the size of Switzerland. There's nobody there, to the best of our knowledge. Nobody, you know. You know, if you took a country that you think is familiar with, like Nepal, you think, well, 70% of that area is uninhabited. People live in small pockets of it. Yeah. And there is plenty of opportunity for Southeast Asia is a great place for hominids to exist. Yeah. As we know now, there were several different types coexisting with us. It's entirely plausible that they could. And, you know, I'll give you an example of just how different it can be between where the populated place was and the unpopulated place. So I was making a film. I've made 2 films in Nepal. One just before I came to the US, I made for Josh Gates's show, the Expedition Unknown, the Yeti, where I found a Yeti print on the show. But before that, I went to the other side of Nepal with Monster Quest for their Abominable Snowman show. And it's not shown, I don't think it's shown in the film, but we were going to get a helicopter out because we had to climb up this mountain and it was really quite perilous. And my fixer, Maggie, she made the Kill Bill films. She was like crying all the way up. And then like she was crying the helicopter comes in and everyone goes, yay, like that. And then the helicopter pilot just shakes his head because it was too windy to land and he just like flies off. And we were like, oh, so it was like literally like that. It was like, oh, we've got to go down. I mean, and it was just horrendous going down this thing. There's a whole story behind that, but it was just horrendous. So we go down this thing and you know, at the end of it, we had to go down for many hours, hiking to another rendezvous point where there was another helicopter would pick us up the next morning. But we had to make it there because of the windows, you know, with the thermals, it's very narrow. So it was going all night, just exhausted. So just exhausted. And I met up with Ian Redmond, the UN ambassador for gorillas, who was, I'd sent down the other valley on the other side. And we had ourselves a whiskey, you know. It's like, hey, we're alive, man. So we had ourselves a whiskey. And we were still on the edge of civilization, but civilization was only about, you know, small villages from where we were there, were only about 10, 12 miles away. And a clouded leopard came into our camp. Wow. Yeah, because it was curious. It was like, what's going on here type thing. But you could see the transition, the very rapid transition, this is my point, between areas which were inhabited, where you might think the flora and fauna is quite poor, to how vibrant they are within you know, a relatively small space of mileage between that and this vibrant ecosystem. So my distilled point is, there are plenty of areas where we are not screwing things up yet. Less and less, I know, but there, if it is a resourceful and adaptable and highly intelligent creature, then I think it's certainly very possible and very exciting that there are some of those out there. I mean, there'll be pockets of them. I'm not talking about vast numbers. I'm talking about small pockets, hardy, learn to avoid people, resourceful, and living in those areas. I mean, they don't have to see people.
And quite frankly, why would they want to?
No, it would be. It's a bad move. It's a bad move.
Exactly. In terms of their knowledge and what they can do, and their intelligence, how intelligent do you think they really are? I mean, can they tie knots? Do they think like you and I think? I think that my belief is that they're expert, very, very expert woodsmen, and they can smell you and hear you and see you a mile away coming. And that's why it's very difficult to try to have any kind of encounter with them.
Well, it depends. And it depends on first of all, it depends on the different creature. So, they certainly, you're making a parallel with Bigfoot, I would assume, in the United States.
Certainly.
I think most of the time they'll have superior. I mean, my understanding is, my observational and experience has been that certainly they'll have better hearing. In most cases, they certainly have a high degree of sentience, but the big question I always want to answer is how big is that level of sentience? They're physically very robust. I think their tool use is quite primitive. I've not seen any evidence that it's much greater than chimpanzees, but chimpanzees are very bright. I think they're more intelligent than them, but again, this is speculation. They're not always got greatly superior hearing to us. I mean, there was I worked out with the orang pendek in Sumatra, which is the little man of the jungle.
Right.
I worked out, because I was there 8 times tracking it, that its hearing wasn't greatly superior to ours, and I was able to use a stealth approach. So a couple of people I was with got had an eyewitness sighting. That's a whole other story. And again, I can make that assertion with some confidence, because some of the prints we found were again analysed by Chivers, as well as who's the world's leading primatologist, as well as Jeff Meldrum, and they came to the conclusion that they were from an unknown primate. But we were able to get quite close to that. But that's no different to people. Some people have more physical attributes. Some are better at things than others. So I think the biggest question, though, is really how intelligent they are. That's what I'm really super interested in. I think with all of these questions, that those are based on my observation and experience. But if you said to me, give me 3 words, the answer would be I don't know. And I think one of the things that we were talking about with Chad before the show is, and he was what I liked was he was quite happy to say I don't know. And sure. I think I don't know the answer. I don't know whether this stick structure is a Bigfoot. I didn't see it. And so I think what we have to do is our premise should be, I don't know, but I'll gather evidence, and then I'll see if we can make the evidence lead to hypotheses and assertions that we can make. So I think that's where we are with things,
You're awesome, Adam. Josh, do you got something you want to say? Okay, Josh has something for you.
I'll be right back.
In all your travels, have you ever come across anything you just could not explain?
Oh yeah, I mean, there are some very strange things I couldn't explain. I mean, one of the places I went to recently. I mean, because I've done a lot over the years, so it's whatever first pops into my head, Josh. I might give you when I see you in Michigan, it might give you a different answer, but that's just who I am. I think one of the places I went to, which I really enjoyed, I went with a guy called Stephen Major and Larry Beans Baxter, and I wrote a novel recently, and it's just a novel called Revenge of the Hairy Man, all about this place, because I thought it was really interesting. It's a place called Port Chatham. And it was the stories go that this was a thriving town in Alaska in the 1950s. I mean, really doing quite well. And something that they call the hairy man started to kill people. And they got security around the town, and it still did this. This was the rumors at the time, and this was the rumors that were there. And I thought it was fascinating, this whole story, because it was an attempt to like push back civilization. And I just thought, well, I've got to go in. And Stephen said, let's go in. So we went in, and again, this is a whole long story, but I'll just pick out a couple of bits. And I got something on the night vision. I saw what looked like something bipedal, and Dr. Robert Alley at the time said, well, it could be. But the whole place it was abandoned. When you go in there, the whole place had a very creepy vibe. I mean, really weird. And when we got back, Stephen and Josiah and I, from the first time, the locals were like shaking our hands, saying, "Oh, you survived then." I mean, nobody would take us at first. Nobody would even take us. Now it's opening up a little bit. It's almost like we broke the seal, for want of a better word. but that place was really very, very, very strange. It had an oppressive vibe to it.
Do you think that it's supernatural, Adam? Do you believe that is like spiritual, like the feelings you get? Explain your feelings. Explain your whole theory on the feelings and everything.
Well, you've got to be careful, because you can have something called cognitive priming. So what do I mean by that? These ghost shows. I'm sure you guys must have watched ghost shows because they're fun. But you'll hear this.
I have a saying for it: power of suggestion.
Well, yeah. Well, let me give you an example. Cognitive priming is power of suggestion. So let me explain what I mean. So you hear a noise, yeah, and there's somebody there. I'm not going to name a name, but one of these ghost hunter guys, and I like these shows. So, but I'm just giving you an example. So you'll hear a message allegedly from the spirit, and you'll hear, and then one of them will go, "He said it's Barry," and then next time you hear it, you'll hear Barry. That's cognitive priming, because your brain's looking for a pattern in that, and we all do that, yeah. We're evolutionary primed to look for patterns. Why? That's why people believe strange things, and that's why. And we had to do that from our evolution. So if big cats are ambush specialists, I've been very close to tigers, for example, which wait for you in bushes. And if your ancestors didn't recognize the patterns of their eyes or stripes, you would not exist, because your ancestors would have been eaten. So we all do that. So you have to be careful of cognitive priming. All I can say to it, though, it did feel really weird, and I always respect Native American traditions, and they regarded it as a really evil place. The people who own it, the English Bay Company,
was that power of suggestion?
Well, that was their legends, and so
they told you about them. Was that power of suggestion when you were out there? I'm not saying it was, but
could be. It could be. I mean, I had a feeling. It felt oppressive, but then I'm exhausted. I've not slept for days. I'm in a creepy ass town, and people have been telling me it's evil, and everyone's been thinking, well, is he going to come back? So I'm giving you all those caveats, and then saying, well, yeah, it could be something creepy. It's not a place I'd want to go. I'd want to spend my vacation for 2 weeks. I wouldn't want us to chill out on the beach at Port Chatham. It wouldn't be fun. It's all I can say.
Chad, and Adam and Josh, I can just say here, from my perspective, having been my entire career in law enforcement, I spent some time as a street cop, quite a few years. And as a street cop, you get this sixth sense where you know that something just isn't right. And it primes you like that. And I think there's something a little bit more to it than just, any kind of cognitive suggestion, that it is real. And cops learn to trust it in order that it keeps them safe while they're out there doing the job.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, and that's what I do when I'm tracking. I trust my instincts, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm out in, you know, some of the places I've been to, there's no backup. There's no people helping me. You know, if I'm in the middle of a jungle, I trust my instincts. So you're absolutely right. And so in that situation, in that environment, I absolutely trust my instincts. I mean, afterwards, I can reflect on it, and I think that's healthy, as long as you don't overthink things. But essentially, that's what I do.
Josh?
Poor Josh. He's like, oh, no.
I can't wait to meet you, Adam. He's
thrown under the bus. Thrown under the bus, buddy.
We're cool, Josh. If you haven't got a question, I'm not going to take offense. We're good, man.
No, I know. Besides that, have you ever come across anything that seemed a little woo-ish, a little maybe supernatural?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about whether it would be supernatural. And most of the things that, but it's not my motivation. My motivation really is, you know, I think sometimes you can find what you're looking for. So, for example, let me be very clear to you. If somebody presented me some evidence of, I'm not going to reject it because it has some sort of woo label to it. That's arrogant. We talked about scientific arrogance earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
If it can be corroborated and scientifically replicated by independent people, then I am good with it. So let me give you an example, Josh. If you know, we were to go back 1,000 years ago, Chad's smoking there, and he got his lighter out, we'd be going, witchcraft to burn him. Yeah, it'd be magic. But you know, if I could say to you, well, actually, this is what happened. This is the chemical combustion that caused that. It wouldn't be witchcraft. It would just be explainable. So you know, what I have difficulty with is not the idea that there might be unusual or anomalous phenomena that has not been explained. I have no problem with that at all. And we're all inquiring. All of us sat here must have that outlook, or we wouldn't be sat here. We must do. But what I do not like is a quasi-religious aspect to it. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The idea that the forest people are all good, benevolent, and wonderful, and all they want to do is give us kisses and hugs. I don't subscribe to that, because there's no species ever in existence where everything's been benevolent. Yeah, Look at us. Some of us are nice, some of us not so nice. Some of us are good, not so good. Let's look at intelligent creatures. Chimps. Some of them are horrible. Some of them are not. You know. Let's look at dogs. We've all petted
one day
a nice
I can
dog.
be nice. The next day I'm mean.
That's it, exactly. You know, it depends what day of the week it is for Chad. You know how difficult he can be. But you know, my point is the notion that every single member of a species are all wonderful and all want to do us good is not intensely naive to me. So I don't mind that. But if people are saying to me, well, this animal could have properties, or this creature, whatever you want to call it, or this human could have properties which we don't yet understand, and we're trying to find a way, and this is my best explanation, then I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm not you know, who am I to say what people should or should not think? All I can tell you is what I think and what my approach is, you know.
Before we get into the conference, I have a question for you, and I want your opinion because you've traveled the world. What do you think about pollution, contaminated water sources? Do you think there's possible effects on some of these species in certain areas because they have lead-filled water and contaminated water, and then like up north in Michigan, where they actually seem friendlier than they do down southern parts of the country, where they have cleaner, purer water? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I can't speak for Michigan because I'm yet to come. I mean, but I'll be out researching with you, so we'll find out. So I'll give you a better opinion. What I can say is this. Obviously, animals, as you know, when you're going tracking, one of the first things you look for when you're going tracking is you look for the nearest water source to the tracks. You follow the game trail, and you follow the game trail to a water source. If those water sources are polluted, then you're going to have less animals and they're going to move along. But I want to give you a very positive point as well. That can change. So I talked to some of my students, and one of the things I was saying to them about pollution, because you guys seem to be very environmentally aware. That's the second or third question we've had about pollution from you guys. So I'll give you a positive thing. It can change. So when I was young, my home city is Manchester in the United Kingdom. Obviously, I live in the United States now. I'm a US citizen, but originally I'm from there. And when I was a kid, the rivers were very, very polluted, very, very polluted, and there was a lot of talk about whether we should not carry on polluting them or not, whether we should sort of, it may lose jobs, and people, if we stop this, there's going to be a really negative impact on jobs. And they did bring in environmental pollution laws. And what gladdened my heart when I used to go to court to work for the government was that there were swans on the rivers and swans on the canals, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So my point is, if there is pollution going on, then it can, in terms of water, it can quite quickly change with some enforcement of environmental laws. The question will be, I don't know Michigan. I'm excited to go. I really am genuinely excited to go. I only do a few of these conferences a year because I spend most of my time researching or working. So I picked Michigan because I want to see it for myself. I chose you to want to go, because I want to see what happens there. But yeah, no, I'm very sensitive about environmental pollution. I'm very keen on rainforests not being destroyed. It's a very transient. We talked about arrogance earlier on. A lot of them, for example, are being destroyed to make palm oil plantations. And once these things go, they go forever. And I'm glad that you're asking me questions about an environment. I'm glad that you are sensitive to that.
Did you know the largest rainforest in North America? Do you know where it's at?
No, I don't know. Is it in your area? Are you going to tell me that?
It's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, that's wonderful.
At least on the Continental Divide, from the right to the left, on our side.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to go, Chad. I want to go and have a look at your area. I want to go out in the woods. And one thing that I stress is very important, and I'm making this point as a general point for people when they go in areas. I do not know it all. I do not have all the answers. I've not been into your woods. You know your woods and you know your area. And when I go there, I'm going to be very respectful and learn from you. We don't
know where we're going, Adam.
Well,
we're going in virgin land. So don't sit there and mislead these people that I'm taking you somewhere I know where I'm at. Because where we're going, I'm not going to really know where I'm at.
Well, it's going to be fun then. We'll learn together.
Yep. Now, did you want to talk about the conference? I mean, we're 43 minutes in. Adam Davies is a key speaker at our conference. And afterwards, we're going to an undisclosed location for roughly a week. And we're going to be in the field together. And we're going to be surrounded by other renowned speakers and film people. And it's not going to be set up like a network thing. It's just going to be us doing us. And what do you?
It'll be great. It'll be awesome. Conference is scheduled and will be on July 17th. It's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and you can get tickets online for this. We're already selling tickets, and we've had a decent response already. Josh, it is at the Michigan Bigfoot Conference.com, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And again, we're having a lot of great speakers, Adam Davies included here. And we can't wait to meet you all and have you guys all come and meet all these great guests. And one thing that a member from our group had said, Ernie, is that this is aiming to be like the Woodstock of Bigfoot conferences because of the caliber of guests that we're having here. And I'm truly of the opinion, where do you get all of these guys with this incredible knowledge and everything together in one place at one time? I mean, we have Cliff Brockman, Ken Gerhardt, Adam Davies here, Robert Kreider, Jason Kenzie, Miranda Young, Janice Carter, Carrie Arnold from Bigfoot Odyssey, and then our Michigan speakers, Al Zavala, Robert Daigle, Sheeta Noir, Steve Ward, who is an expert on Mothman, and then Robin McRae as well. So we have this coming up on July 17th. We're very excited to have Adam come and be with us, and not only for the conference, but to go out on some researching afterwards.
Yeah, it'll be good. I mean, and I don't know the other people, but I know Ken and Cliff very well. They're friends of mine. I was speaking to Ken today. And I spoke to Cliff, and they're both extremely knowledgeable. You might think with Cliff, he's been on a TV show. Well, I knew Cliff before he was on the TV show, and he has a wealth of knowledge. He's got encyclopedic knowledge of the Bigfoot subjects, and Ken's got a wealth of knowledge about a whole range of different cryptids. So they will bring. I can't speak about the other people. I'll learn about them when I get there. But I do know those two very well. I've known them for years. They're friends of mine, and they'll add some good substance to your conference. I'm sure of that.
Absolutely, and we are very lucky and honored to have yourself and them coming as well to contribute to this really great conference that we're going to have.
Good stuff.
It's not really about the conference. Sorry, Josh. It's not really about it, man. All these speakers are, an hour, a little over max is what they're getting. The rest of their time, they're going to be in the atrium, one-on-one with you. If you want to talk to them, go to their table, go see them. It's gonna be different than most conferences because we prefer less speaking and more one-on-one for the people that come to it. Is kind of what we're shooting for. But I'm sorry, Josh. You go ahead, buddy.
I did have a question. What was it like working with Josh Gates?
There you go.
Well, Josh, what you have to remember, Josh does his own stunts, and he's very professional. But he's from that school of acting, so he's not. That's what he is. What he is that he was always very nice to me. Is what I'll say.
So
that's awesome.
Definitely the Jackie Chan of the Bigfoot world, then.
Well, he's we did a thing where sometimes, because one of the most common questions I get asked about Josh is, is any of that stuff staged? I mean, inevitably. I can tell you that Josh and I, if you see the hunt for the Yeti the in Nepal, you saw that. Yeah. Not the Yeti print thing. I really did find a Yeti print. I said I didn't want 20 a possible Yeti print. I should qualify that. I didn't want 20 people with us. I said I just want Josh and Thule, who's a tracker who found a print on Destination Truth. We were in the same sort of area. It was Thule that found it. Josh isn't a tracker. And I found that print there, and it was a surprise to them, and it was good fortune for me. The other thing, when you see us abseil off the cliff face, well, we did. It was freezing cold. It was thousands of feet up, and what you can't see is very fine snow started to go, and the rope was twitching in the wind. It was perilous, So Josh has got guts. He's got balls, if you know what I mean. But it's not his. This subject isn't his passion in the same way it's ours. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's a gig to Josh. But when he goes at it with gusto.
Very cool.
So you're saying he's exactly the way he is as we see him on TV.
Well, what I'm saying is,
pin him down, Josh. Come on, give the guy a chance.
What I'm saying, no, I'm not saying that, Josh. What I'm saying, he does his own stunts and he's very professional. I'm not saying he's exactly the same way as he is on TV.
Okay, because he seems like a really nice guy and a really good.
Well, he was very nice to me, Josh.
Okay.
Very cool. Hey, talking about Yeti anyway, can you discuss, and definitely the conference, I think, according to your world's travels and everything, what the differences and similarities between Yeti and Bigfoot are and are not?
Well, all of this is conjecture, of course.
Certainly.
But if I want to give a very brief synopsis, Bigfoots are generally speaking bigger than Yetis. Bigfoots are described as, let's just say, an approximation. We're just going to use some generalizations because it's the only way I can do it. So let's say a Bigfoot is 7 foot, a Yeti's about 6 foot. So they're smaller, generally speaking. One thing, the Yetis often, I know Bigfoots have had these noises, but when I listen to Yeti encounters, one of the first things people talk about is a whistling. Yeah, they talk about whistling and they talk about that as being some of the things that actually happen. With the Bigfoot, there's a variety of different ways people interact with them. Yetis, because of the scenery, one of the things that the first people say to me when they have an encounter is they talk about the fluidity and the rapidity of a movement. Yeah, one of the first things that people say to me is, I saw this Yeti creature and I couldn't believe how quickly it crossed that rock face. It just like it flowed. Or I couldn't believe how quickly it crossed that pasture. It looked like it was running because it was going so quick, but it wasn't. It's just how it rolls, I don't know about the level of sentience, really. It's difficult to say. If you had to make me guess, I'd say Bigfoot might be more intelligent. It doesn't have to. The Yeti doesn't have to develop the same degree of cunning and elusiveness as a Bigfoot would have. Simply, one of the things that I thought was interesting was that they looked at foxes recently. I'm making a generalization comparison, but urban foxes are actually responding in evolutionary terms to us in the sense that they're developing smaller brains and becoming scavengers as opposed to their cousins in the countryside. So I would say that Bigfoot, again, conjecture, might well be more intelligent than a Yeti, simply because it's not had to develop the same degree of resourcefulness and cunning, possibly, as a Bigfoot. I don't know, of course, but that's what I think. I get the impression, when I look at Yetis and Almas in Mongolia and a couple of other things, that they do have a level of sentience, probably commensurate with a chimp, or maybe slightly more intelligent than a chimp. I don't think they're mastermind, but Bigfoot may well be cleverer than the whole lot by a long way. But that's me speculating.
That's very interesting that you say that, and we see some differences in North America here, as you're aware, between Bigfoot, like in the northern part of the country versus southern part of the country. We're just down in Florida on a documentary called 168 Hours, looking at skunk apes, which are reported to be smaller, which are reported to have different footprints than you see in typical Bigfoot reportings. And we actually got a few prints that we're very excited about. We got collected before we even cast them. We collected eDNA samples from inside the tracks. Hopefully we can send them out, and if it came back as some sort of primate or hominoid, it would be gold. It would be great. But I think there are some big differences just in the country alone, notwithstanding, across the world on the other side of the world.
Definitely. I mean, and Florida's a great place to do research. I've been there a few times myself, and I enjoyed it. I think there's some really good potential for evidence in Florida. So I'm with you on that.
It's a lot cooler in Michigan, Adam.
It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot cooler in Michigan. You go to Florida in even in September, it was like a cauldron. It was so damn hot. So damn hot there, yeah. It's true.
Come on, Josh, man. You're on the clock, man.
Now, I know not many people know, but I know there's a common misconception about the Yeti that a lot of people think it's white.
No, that's not true. Yeah. I mean, there's a common misconception about the Yeti in lots of different ways. I mean, one of the misconceptions is that it's white. Of course, it's not white. Mm-hmm. It's going to, if it crosses those mountain passes high up, then it only traverses them to get from one valley to another. I mean, very simply, what's it going to eat if it's up in the snow? Do you know what I mean? There's going to be nothing for it to consume. What they offer, the Yeti is normally brown or black, yeah. And there was this misconception with Brian Sykes, who did some work and research on that one of the Yeti, he said it's a bear. Well, if you look at the ancient legends, they describe one of the different types of Yeti as being a bear, yeah. But another type of Yeti is a man. They're different, yeah. So no, the Yeti isn't white, and you were right to say that, Josh. It's normally brown or black, and it goes in those valleys. It goes in those valleys in the high altitude in the Himalayas.
What about the snow freezing and melting on them from their body heat? I mean, during a snowstorm, they could appear white because they're covered in snow and the snow's clinging to them. Is that a possibility?
It might be a possibility for a short period of time, but it's not. I mean, Josh's question is their hair or is their fur white? Yeah, not could they be camouflaged by chance?
Now, do they have hair? Or do they have fur? In your opinion?
Well,
my belief is Bigfoot have hair.
Hair is hair. It's hair. Yeah, it's hair on their bodies. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. And that hair might have different or unusual attributes to it, depending on the environment that you're in. Just like any other creature, just like us in different areas. So yeah.
Well, what do you think? I'm
loving this interview.
Isn't this great? This is awesome having Adam on here with us.
Nice, my pleasure, guys.
Oh, the pleasure's ours. What do you think about the mysticism behind the Yeti being, let me get this right, being the guardian of Shambhala for the Tibetans?
Oh Lord, I'm gonna have to mute for this one.
Well, it depends.
You have flesh and blood versus the mysticism of it. How do you place all that?
Well, the shamanism and the mysticism can be different and inconsistent depending on the tribe or the peoples. So certainly, some of them will give the Yeti a lot of power and prowess. So you see, you can't see it on this side, but I've got a birthmark on my head. Maybe you can see it there. And when I did a film for National Geographic, The Last Living Neanderthal, and I met the head lama of Mongolia. I had a special audience with him, and he was talking about the Yeti having, a great reverence, a great reverence. And he said, that mark, for example, shows you were reincarnated previously as a man, because of course they're Buddhists, they believe in reincarnation, that's what they believe. But if you look at some of the older shamanistic stories, they list all the animals in the that exist in the country of Nepal, and the Yeti is one of them, and what it can be used for, like its bones can be used for some sort of magic. Yeah,
Right.
It's
right.
just, I mean, what's interesting about that, because this is thousands of years old, is that shamanistic tradition is, it predates a lot of our modern religions, but it's just an animal. It's just one of those things, and there are its properties. So I'm giving you, in some cases it's very revered and it has a mystical thing. In other cases it has a specific use, like tiger bones.
Right.
But for most of these people, with these creatures, they're often regarded as being the kings of their environment. Yeah, at the top of it. If I say to you, no, so the Suku Dalam are a tribe in Sumatra, and they will say to me, well, I said to them, is the tiger the top creature here, because they've got the highest concentration of tigers anywhere in the world? And they'll say, well, no, the top creature is the orang pendek. So they have this hierarchy. So there is a quasi mysticism around these creatures in all places. And it's interesting to me from an anthropological point of view that with some people, there's a mysticism that's been created around Bigfoot, hasn't there? I mean, Josh talked to me earlier on about the woo thing. There's a mysticism that's been created today. It's today's modern mysticism. Is that woo, is that woo. So there's always, in some ways we want to understand things that are like us, and the biggest single thing that people will say to me, wherever they are, there's a commonality of humanity about these things, is the first, when I saw it, I was shocked because it was just like me. It was just like me. Isn't an animal, it's just like me, and they're freaked out,
Absolutely. I'm of the opinion that, like you said earlier, in regards to scientific knowledge, a few hundred years ago, the atom and bacteria would have been seen as supernatural and unbelievable.
Yeah.
Similarly, 300 or 500 years from now, we're going to have scientific knowledge that we don't have now. We're going to have an understanding that we don't have now, and maybe some of the things that seem mystical to us now will be able to be explained through science and biology and other areas.
Yeah, we will, and we'll have and we'll have this massive expansion. So I mean, one of the things that we may see in a couple of 100 years, for example, is people living on Mars. You've seen the probe landing on Mars, and what will they look like when they live on Mars? Well, the atmosphere is 1% of ours.
Yeah,
and even if they do that engineering, you may well see people evolve into being very tall and thin with long arms, very tall, thin with long arms. And people can say, well, that sounds crazy. Well, look at the evolution within species. So what do I mean by that? You see, for example, savanna elephants are very big. And if you go to the jungle, the Congo, I talked to you about the most dangerous animal in the Congo for me, large animal, is the forest elephant. If I see forest elephant tracks, I look wherever way those tracks are, I'm going in the opposite direction. They will attack me. Yeah, they're extremely aggressive. Short elephant syndrome is not something you want to mess with. But we think about people, and we can think about it with ourselves. I gave you an example of pygmy. A pygmy is much. I'm 6 foot tall, so I'm quite big. And moving through the jungle for me is much harder work than it is a pygmy, because they can get under the branches and they can do that. Look at Flores man. That's a type of human, very different to us, very different. So my point is, within a few thousand years, we can evolve to look very different. We are completely different to Flores man, completely different. But in terms of evolution, that's in a very short space of time.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think it would. People talk about terraforming planets, but I think actually what we'll see is the DNA of humans being altered so that they can live in places like Mars and in different environments. And it's going to create, like you said, entirely new species. Now, you look at the different environmental changes in the past, like the DNA bottleneck about 72,000 years ago. I think there was a volcano in Sumatra or
Yeah.
in Southeast Asia.
It's Sumatra. It's Lake Toba. I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah, where there was only a few thousand people alive on the Earth at the time that survived it, and yet we have this great diversity of humans on the Earth at this time. So I think that's definitely a valid point you bring up.
Yeah, we were nearly extinct after that. You're absolutely right. I went to Lake Toba. I went to the island there because I was interested in that. It's a wonderful place, very fascinating. But yeah, that was our edge. Things, people need to understand that at that point in our history, if things had gone badly for us, if there'd been a plague at that time,
Right.
that would have been the end of us. Boom.
Exactly. So, well, we've been on for over an hour now, sir, and we have promised you that you can be on with your evening as well.
No,
Chad.
no, it don't work that way.
Come on.
No.
Come on, Chad. Come on.
Mute Chad.
Give the man a break.
So Adam, I mean, what? You don't even know what you're getting into. You're coming to this conference. Kind of got an idea on that because you've done a couple. You have no clue what you're getting into, what we're going to put you into. And it's not all that hard. Yeah, it's going to be kind of hard. But we're going to be lost. We're going to areas, virgin areas. We're going to search for evidence. So, hey, we may not find anything, or we may. But we're going into areas that nobody's been in like years. Thousands of acres we have of private property, plus thousands of acres of national forest land surrounding us, and actually millions of acres surrounding us.
Good.
But
well, that's what I want.
As
I said to you, I don't like to do things that other people have done over again. There's no joy in that for me. I like to do things that are a bit different, at a cutting edge, and I want to do it. You asked me, we talked about it, Chad, and I want to do it because it's different. Yeah, I don't want to go to the same places people have been 100 times before. Not interested. I'm an explorer. That's my nature. So if it's something different, I'm on it. Yeah, that's what I'm into. So
now, I want to tell you all exactly what Adam said to me. He says, Chad, I only do a couple conferences a year. Conferences aren't good for me. I like to be out in the field. And I said, well, Adam, just so you know, we're going out in the field for a week after. And then Adam said, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm not about going to lots of different conferences. I have to really want to go to some.
Well, we have to do this, so Adam, you have to understand. We have to do this.
No, absolutely. No, and I'll do that one-to-one time. I like talking to people.
Come back next year. No, not one time. You're coming back next year.
You're going to keep me, are you?
Right?
Am I going to escape from these woods in Michigan?
We can take you to a new part of Michigan each time. We can take you to a new part of Michigan each time, Adam. Upper Peninsula is really cool. I liken it a little bit to Alaska, kind of like a little Alaska, and it's really neat. Very sparsely populated, just a ton of wilderness and just beauty out there. And last 3 or 4 times I've been out in the woods in northern Michigan, I've encountered bear, and in a good way, not in a bad way or anything, but just really beautiful, amazing.
Why don't you tell the truth, Dave? Here's what happens. Northern Michigan is beautiful. It is beautiful. We'll drive through a bunch of Michigan when I'm taking up north. You're gonna be like, oh, yeah, are you serious? And then we're gonna get up north and you're gonna be like, oh my god, this is incredible. But when you cross the bridge and you go to the Upper Peninsula, it's almost like going to a different country. Everything is so different. People don't understand crossing the Mackinac Bridge when you're from the upper lower peninsula till you get to the UP. It's
It is. It really is. It's like going into definitely a different land completely. So, we have that too. If you come back, we definitely like to do that with you as well. We have places up there that we have
he's
gone and
coming
that we can
back.
go, and that'd be really cool. That'd be really
What do you
cool.
mean, Dave? He's coming back. He has no choice.
Awesome, guys.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm excited from the conference. I'm excited to meet you all in person. So we'll be doing that
Very fun.
very soon. We will.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am looking forward to that.
And I want to thank you for being on the show, Adam. I'm going to mute and I'm going to let everybody thank you. And thank you for the hour and 10 minutes.
No, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
It's great.
I'm gonna go and sit in my garden now with a couple of friends and chill. So we'll do that.
Very cool. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, my
speaking
pleasure.
with you.
See you guys.
Nice to meet you, Adam.
Nice to meet
Bye
you
now.
guys. See you soon. Bye bye.
Take care.